Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's been a very slow week, up 0.4%, which we all know is a slow week for crypto, just over £1,000. But yeah, we've had some sort of little bit of news, not a huge amount. Just first looking at the CoinShares report, so we knew this was going to be positive for sort of last week of the year, or sort of into the first week of the new year, I suppose. We had 582 million positive for the week, and this was sort of their end of year one, so we sort of got some annual summary. So 47.2 billion in inflows in total for 2025, just shy of the 2024 record. And they sort of give you the breakdown per coin, which I thought was quite interesting. So sort of week flows as normal, Bitcoin 512, Ethereum 119 million, 21 million coming out of multi-asset yet again. XRP 10 million in, and Solana 30 million out. So that's a little bit surprising. A little bit into Sui, a little bit into Chainlink, and 10 million coming out of short Bitcoin. So people wanting to take a bit out. Remember, it's only got 139 million, so 10 million coming out of that is a little bit of a surprise. Bitcoin's been sort of volatile, but starting to look up, and people maybe sort of wanting to get out of that. But you can look at the 2025 flows for the total of the year. Bitcoin nearly $27 billion. That's very strong. Ethereum though, 12.7 billion is, I have to say, pretty strong. Multi-asset actually had an outflow for the whole year, which is the only one of all of these coins, considering it was a pretty big year, so that's unusual. And then the two new boys, XRP and Solana, almost exactly the same at sort of 3.6 billion or so. And then, yeah, some small numbers, 1 million into Litecoin for the year. A little bit into Zcash. Didn't realize we actually had a Zcash ETF. Must be somewhere in Europe or Asia, I would have thought. 152 into Sui, a little bit into Chainlink, inflow into, short Bitcoin. Nearly all of that AUM has come from inflows last year, and 120 million into others. So, yeah, compared to 2024, Ethereum took on an enormous amount of inflows. Bitcoin was less, and yeah, we had the new boys. Oh, and just looking by country, so on the weekly is sort of nothing really there. It's all fairly small figures, but just looking at the 2025 is interesting. We had sort of a little bit going to Australia, Canada with 1.1 billion, Germany with 2.45. So I'm guessing a lot of that was the altcoins. Sort of been saying, presumed this was Europe sort of buying the altcoins, since we don't have a spot, XRP ETF, and that's had 3 billion go into it. So I presume a lot of this must be coming from Europe. We had sort of 293 going into Hong Kong, a little bit going into Netherlands. Didn't realise they had one. Quite interesting there, 775 coming out of Sweden and going into Switzerland. Guessing that might just be a coincidence. Can't imagine they're moving it from country to country. And of course, US 42.5 billion, which would be the largest. But yeah, some interesting numbers to look at for the year, certainly. And looking at this week, it looks like, as I say, we're going to have a negative, even though Monday was very strong. We had sort of inflows across the board into even the small ones that sort of haven't been getting a lot. Valkyrie one, the Wisdom Tree one, Franklin Templeton. So yeah, inflows across the board except the old grayscale, which I would call, a strong inflow day, nearly 700 million. But that was pretty much the end of it, aside from a decent amount into BlackRock on Tuesday, sort of overshadowed by outflows, and then everyone went to outflows sort of near enough for the rest of the week. So we got 243, 486 million out, 398, and then 250 million on the nose. So that'll be quite, well, not loads and loads, a few hundred million in outflows, or 500 million. But there you go. And Ethereum, not quite so bad, actually. We had 2 days of net inflow, sort of again helped by BlackRock on Tuesday, but yeah, 168 and 114 million. And then, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday went to outflow, and it'll be an outflow week overall, but not by a huge amount. Sort of, what is it, 100 million? So yeah, Ethereum sort of holding up a little bit better. Still quite a lot coming out of the old grayscale, which is sort of no real surprise really. 5.1 billion out of that now, out of a total sort of 9.2 billion. You'd expect over time the whole lot to come out and go to other ETFs. And Solana still doing well. I mean, at some point we have to, stop saying that this is a brand new ETF and that there shouldn't be any outflows, because it is, it's had a little bit of time to get going now, and we've still had no outflow. Well, we have had, I think, one outflow day from 21 shares, wasn't it? But certainly this week and previous week, no outflow days from anyone. 5 sort of small but four small but positive numbers, and then a flat 0 on Friday. So yeah, Solana still doing okay. Still don't have the XRP ones up here, but yeah. You're looking at strategy, they're sort of getting a little bit cryptic. He started, teasing raising cash from the looks of it, orange or green. I think green is sort of them raising cash for their USD reserve. And yeah, they came out on Monday and said that they had acquired 1,287 Bitcoin, but also kept some of the money that they'd raised, $62 million. And they now have a $2.25 billion USD reserve to pay dividends. And they seem to, I mean, he could sort of sell snow to the North Pole, it seems, because he's been able to make shareholders sort of look bullishly upon raising cash to pay dividends. That's basically sell pressure for the stock. To pay these dividends, they have to raise money somehow. The software company isn't making anything, basically. So, yeah, they have to keep either selling shares or taking on new debt to pay the old debt. And there's no gain out of it, because they're certainly not buying Bitcoin. They're just paying it out. And you presume those people that are getting the dividends aren't suddenly going to reinvest in MicroStrategy stock. So, yeah. Somehow he's been able to turn that into a positive. But yeah, 1,287 Bitcoin. They're now at 673,700. Quite a total. You had Strive, one of the smaller treasuries, buy a little bit more. We're not really seeing too much buying from the smaller ones, and they did get a little bit of good news. MSCI have confirmed that their strategy will remain in MSCI indexes for the February 2026 review. See that as a strong outcome for strategy. Say a strong outcome for neutral indexing and economic reality. I suppose it probably is a strong outcome for neutral indexing. There's plenty of stuff, plenty of companies that are a little bit strange or doing strange things with their balance sheet, and they're sort of, in the index. And to sort of single out strategy and exclude them maybe would seem a little bit strange. So yeah, that's seen as good for strategy. Not really too much else happening. I don't think they're having another conference to try and convince people to maybe not take the same approach as them, but buy a little bit of Bitcoin for the balance sheet at least. So February 24th and 25th. I'll have to see, and there's lots of people talking about the preferred shares, of course. So everyone's making predictions for the new year. It's not really something that I do, but I sort of like looking at some of these, generally from people who are a bit less biased than this. This is Brazilian exchange Mercado Bitcoin. So obviously they are, somewhat have a vested interest in the industry doing well, but yeah, they've made sort of some predictions for 2026. I thought I would sort of have a quick look through. They are expecting Bitcoin to gold ratio to increase. It currently sits at 5.65%. So total market cap of Bitcoin is 5.65% that of gold's. In theory, if gold sort of continues to rise and the ratio stays the same, then Bitcoin is increasing in price, but they're predicting it reaching 14% of gold's market cap. So with a flat gold price, that would be 223,000, I believe, at current market caps. So yeah, that would be by end of 2026. That would be more than double, as they say, and very strong outcome for me, certainly for my Bitcoin miners. So yeah, it's sort of been developed in part with University of California and sort of various data that they've been using to get to that. I think you can come up with sort of any number depending on the assumptions that you make. They're saying stable coins they expect to grow to $500 billion in 2026, up from 307 billion currently, with Tether have 60.5%. So yeah, started 2025 at 205, so up to 307 in that year is strong growth, 50% growth. And interestingly, they are expecting this to grow from non-US stablecoins, or non-US dollar stablecoins at least. So don't know, gold, euro, sort of Chinese yuan maybe. But yeah, I thought the whole sort of push at the moment was going to be US banks issuing dollar stablecoins and buying up US treasuries with it. But they're expecting non-US stablecoins, so that was interesting. They're expecting altcoin ETFs to do well. They're saying 80% of new inflows to go to the XRP and Solana ones. You do have some Chainlink, but obviously XRP and Solana are the only ones with sort of large flows compared, after Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yeah, they're currently 1.7 billion in XRP ETFs, and Solana adding another 1.09 billion. So they're expecting 10 billion by the end of 2026, and yeah, they're expecting these two numbers to grow significantly. Tokenized assets, don't think anyone's really surprised by this. The current market is not too big. It looks like sort of 17, 18 billion. They're expecting that to grow 200% to 54 billion. Quite a large push. European Union sort of getting into this as well. You don't really see the EU getting into all that much. But you've got major institutional players in it. BlackRock have always said this is their sort of long-term goal, although Franklin Templeton, I think, are still sort of one of the leaders, certainly in like tokenized treasuries. But yeah, prediction markets. This was an interesting one, I thought. So there's currently under $1 billion in sort of locked capital on prediction markets. So whether they're I think they're including Polymarket and Kalshi, which I don't think Kalshi is all that tied to crypto. It's really just Polymarket. So there is potential that sort of Kalshi grows and grows, and there's little benefit to crypto itself. But yeah, under 1 billion, they're expecting it to grow to 20 billion by the end of this year. So that would be a 25x. This attributes the expansion to 2026 World Cup, of course, being in America as well. People will be going in on that. The midterm elections at the end of this year, and entertainment and climate related scenarios people sort of betting on, which is a little bit strange. And AI agents, I suppose people have been sort of saying this for quite a while, but yeah, AI agents sort of becoming more and more common, and people thinking that they won't be using US dollar and Great British Pound to trade, partly because they're not 24/7 tradable. AI agents wanting to work at the weekend, and they're not going to sort of use dollars midweek and crypto at the weekend. So they might just use crypto all the time. So yeah, they're expecting volume traded by AI agents to exceed $1 million per day. I thought, and that would be a quadruple from current levels. I thought both of those figures sounded quite small, to be fair, but I guess it hasn't really sort of got too much traction yet, and they're not expecting it to gain a huge amount of traction. Sort of, $360 million, $365 million in a year isn't exactly a huge amount of volume when you're talking about like 20 billion being locked on prediction markets and enormous volume going through them. So AI agents still seems to be one of the small drivers. Still waiting for the market structure, the Clarity Act from the US. Some sort of people calling this painfully slow. I would say they're moving quite quick for a government and for a sort of regulatory body. But yeah, they are pressing forward to make a decision next week. You have the Agriculture Committee, sort of still trying to try to get a bipartisan effort that everyone agrees with. I'm not really sure sort of what input they have, but yeah, seems a little bit strange. But this isn't really news. It's just we'll see what happens, if anything happens, next week. So speaking of tokenization of real world assets, I suppose this is part of that push. Bank of New York Mellon to offer tokenized deposits for institutional investors. The sort of downside of this being that it's going to be on a private blockchain. A lot of people have been saying that you'll have this sort of battle with banks sort of trying to do things on private blockchains and sort of slowly realizing that there sort of isn't really a security benefit or sort of much of any benefit compared to using public blockchains, and they're saying that even the banks will end up either turning to public blockchains from private, or just starting with the later ones might just go straight into public blockchains, sort of like Ethereum is sort of expected to be the big beneficiary from that. So we'll have to see. Bank of New York Mellon have 58 trillion in assets under management, a hell of a lot, and they're sort of, I think they've always been relatively pro crypto. They've sort of been the first to offer quite a few things. I think they were one of the first to get into custody and try sort of competing with Coinbase for the ETFs. Not sure sort of how much traction they've got, but yeah, good to start seeing more tokenization. And this is the big terrifying news everyone's talking about, really. Venezuela potentially sitting on a large Bitcoin stash, and obviously Nicolas Maduro has been gotten rid of in quick succession. All eyes are on their vast oil reserve, but there is sort of talks that they hold quite a lot of Bitcoin, sort of that they've been maybe using for circumventing sanctions and things, and it could be worth billions of dollars. There's sort of very, unbelievably differing reports. There was somebody, this sort of Project Brazen, Saturday said that they could hold $60 billion worth of crypto, citing unnamed sources, and this was not confirmed at all through blockchain analysis. And they would be one of the biggest holders in the world alongside Strategy. And then you had data provider bitcointreasuries.net. I don't really put a huge amount of stock into theirs because I've seen some stuff on there that I'm almost certain is wrong. But they put Venezuela's holdings at 240 Bitcoin, worth 22 million, which would make them sort of completely irrelevant, really. I think the UK, they were saying at one point held 50,000. So if Venezuela have 240, then that's not really important. I can't remember what the UK actually did. The UK seized some Bitcoin, sort of similar to what the US had been doing. Haven't actually heard whether they'd sold it or not. I think if they'd sold 50,000, we would have heard. So quite interesting if they've seized 50,000 Bitcoin and are still sitting on it. Certainly for the UK. But yeah, so Venezuela hold somewhere between 22 million and $60 billion worth of Bitcoin. That's the biggest range you could possibly have. So yeah, all these estimates must be taken with a grain of salt, but you'd expect, if anything, the US will be sort of taking this in exchange for running, as he's calling it, Venezuela. So yeah, I would expect the US strategic Bitcoin reserve grows with this. So just looking at the miners, we've had a bit of a spike actually in the last week, up to nearly 1.2 zettahash. Did go a little bit above that on Saturday, and yeah, it's sort of been lower than that. So we did get a drop in the difficulty again to 146.47. Sort of looking out on the 3 and 6 month, you can sort of see topped in early November at 150, nearly 156, and has just been sort of pretty much continually coming down. I think there was an ever so slight gain, 148.19 to 148.25 there, but largely down, and then down again to 146.47. So for the last 3 months, it's been 2 months. It's been good for the miners. We do with this little spike up in hash rate. It did go too quick yesterday, I believe, yesterday afternoon, but yeah, has since come back to 10.03 minutes. So at the moment, we're sort of pretty much on track to possibly having a small decrease. I mean, this will change. It's now Thursday, January the 22nd, so another 11 days to go. This will certainly change. But yeah, good to see we're not having sort of rampant increases in difficulty, sort of at a time that I want my miners to be doing well, if only just for this year. So if we got a few more months of this, it would be fantastic. And of course, global liquidity. I keep using this long dated chart now because I think it sort of is probably the better one to look at. The sort of short term, from 2024 one, I haven't sort of matched this to fit now, but it certainly did break down, and it was sort of maybe just a coincidence that the start of the tight correlation was the launch of the ETFs. But yeah, I think sort of looking on the long term is probably a little bit better. Certainly sort of seems to correlate a little bit better, and I don't really think you can say what is this, 6 years, best part of 6 years is a coincidence. I think that's more likely to be somewhat tied to it. So it's sort of Bitcoin goes above and below this global liquidity index sort of quite frequently, and doesn't tend to diverge sort of either up or down from it for this wider gap for too long. So as long as this is doing well, then you'd expect Bitcoin to sort of come back to it in somewhat quick fashion. Looking at the sort of recent week, we've sort of had a chop up and down, really. We sort of get these these periods, sort of 1 week of nothing and then a big increase. I think a lot of this is, I have it on Eastern denominated liquidity, because that seems to be who is providing most of the liquidity at the moment. And yeah, they are still pumping. So we had a little bit of a rise in the US dollar, and yeah, that's sort of, despite the rise in the US dollar, liquidity still came back somewhat to be a gain for the week, or no, for the last 2 weeks. From last week at least, it is slightly down, but obviously you sort of zoom out a little bit, and these are tiny little moves on a overall uptrend. And I mean, basically 2025 was, a straight line up and to the right, as they say. So coins for the week. You can see on screen now that I've put the weekly change, and there was very, very little change in Bitcoin in the sort of majors, really. Bitcoin down 0.7%, Solana up 2%, Ethereum 1.23% down, Chainlink down slightly, Helium though down just over 10%, not really seen anything to cause that, just fluctuations on a very, very small coin. Gito down 5.6%, Metaplex down 2%, Radium interestingly up 8.3%. Again, sort of, it's not a huge coin, so these sort of moves are not too difficult to get. So yeah, you can see my sort of total cost spent on these compared to the very, very small current value is not great at all. So don't know. I still don't think I want to be tax loss harvesting them and putting them into something else. If you sort of total up all 4 of these sort of large reds, if you include Helium, I could put £2,500 into something. I mean, yeah, I could maybe buy some more options or something and try and sort of make back that loss while also getting the tax loss harvest. But yeah, I think there's potential gain in just holding these as well, not getting the tax loss, and seeing if the Solana ecosystem can do well, which I still think it can do. So yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Slow week, and like and subscribe. See you soon.